Hello, in this video I'd like to give you a brief overview of what we'll be covering in Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is devoted to truth-functional logic. Truth-functional logic is a system of deductive logic. It's only one of several different systems of deductive logic that focus on different kinds of logical relationships. But before I get more specific about that, let me talk about just simply the fact that this is a system of deductive logic. You might remember from Chapter 2 that a deductive argument is an argument that is valid or is intended to be valid. A good deductive argument is sound. It's valid, which means it's valid and all of its premises are true. Well, a system of logic really can't help us with determining the actual truth values for the premises or conclusion in an argument, but it can help us with understanding the relationship of support that the premises give or fail to give, as the case may be, to the argument's conclusion. And because we're studying deductive logic here, we understand that relationship of support in terms of validity. In Chapter 3, we are going to be working toward a test of validity or invalidity. And I'll return to that in a moment. Let me say something about the particular kinds of logical relationships that matter in truth-functional logic. This is a system of deductive logic based on logical relationships among truth-functional statements. A statement, you will remember, is a sentence that is either true or false. And for a statement to be a truth-functional statement means it's a statement whose truth value depends entirely on the truth values of its simplest component parts. There are three logical relationships and one logical operation or function that this system of logic, truth-functional logic, is based upon. The function or operation is what's called negation, and the three logical relationships that are important for us here are called conjunction, disjunction, and conditional. You have in box 3A the names of those relationships, the symbols we use to represent them, and the names of those symbols. And then you have in box 3B definitions of truth conditions for negation, conjunction, disjunction, and conditional. By truth conditions, I mean what makes them true and what makes them false, or the conditions that determine their truth values. It's going to be very important that very early on you memorize and understand the material in boxes 3A and 3B. Now, for this for the validity tests that we're working towards to work, we have to be able to translate from English to the language of truth-functional logic. If we start out with an argument in English, we need to translate its premises and its conclusion as setup for the validity test. The language of truth-functional logic is a very limited language because it's an artificial language designed for a very specific and very limited purpose. It only has very limited elements. It has variable letters, which stand for simple statements. Simple statements are statements that cannot be broken up into further parts, which are themselves statements. So there are variable letters that stand for simple statements. There are four symbols, one to represent negation, one to represent conjunction, a third to represent disjunction, and a fourth to represent conditional or conditional statements. And sometimes we need parentheses for grouping. Those are the only elements that there are in the language of truth-functional logic. Now, there are a couple of, really two variations on a validity test involving the use of truth tables. One is a complete truth table where you fill the whole thing out and then look to see whether it determines or it shows you that the argument you're testing is valid or invalid. And then there's a shortcut method based on that. The shortcut method is a lot more efficient, but I think it conceptually probably wouldn't make much sense to you unless you had already learned the complete truth table method. All right, then after we've done those things in Chapter 3, we're going to be working on some common truth-functional argument patterns. Many of these will already look familiar to you from the part of Chapter 1 where we studied arguments with unstated conclusions, or the part of Chapter 2 where we studied arguments with unstated premises. And then we're going to add to those commonly used argument patterns some additional argument patterns that are valid, and also some equivalences, truth functional equivalences, that provide basically the rules that we can use to do what are called natural deductions. That's a particular kind of method of proving the validity of a particular arguments. Now, this material is fairly formal, more formal than what we have done earlier this semester. So you may find that you need to go more slowly with this material and need more practice. There are many practice problem sets in your book, and I'll be making videos in which I cover some of those practice problems with you. Remember, you have answers to all of the practice problems in your book as well, but I think it's going to be very important that you work on those. All right, that's a brief overview of what we will be doing in Chapter 3, and therefore for the rest of this semester. Feel free as always, to ask me any questions that you have, to reach out for any help that I might be able to give you. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I'll talk with you again soon in another video. Take care. Bye.